Hello and welcome to SciLux, the podcast where we talk about scientific developments and technological changes in Luxembourg. And of course, as usual, don't forget we are powered by Research Luxembourg and recording in the studios of RTL City. Today is a very special day because I was just telling my guests it's the first time I have two guests on the show from two different worlds. I'm hoping for a very interesting discussion, and now let me tell you about them. So first of all, we have the first guest, who is Stefano Pozzi Mucelli, who is the National Delegate and National Contact Point for EU Horizon programs at Luxinnovation, full-time supporting companies, startups and researchers in applying to EU funding in the areas of industrial technologies, European Innovation Council, mobility and much more. And also he has a different hat, and that hat means that he has a PhD in nanotechnology. Stefano, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
And then, of course, we also have the second guest, and that's Alberto Noronha, who is the co-founder and CEO of NIUM and former research associate at LCSB at the University of Luxembourg. He is interested in the application of computational methods in healthcare and nutrition, and also has a PhD in computational biology. Alberto, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we start with Stefano, so a little bit more formal discussion, but not that much, I hope. So we have Luxinnovation. First of all, what is Luxinnovation and what's the support we can hope for from Luxinnovation?
Luxinnovation is the National Innovation Agency for Luxembourg. We are public-private partnership. We have main shareholders, the Minister of the Economy, but of course you have the Minister of Research. We have public participation, but then also the private side, which is represented by the Chambre de Commerce, the Chambre de Métiers, et la FEDIL. Our mission is to try and promote innovation in Luxembourg, so try to promote collaboration between companies and the public research side, to try and make the companies ready for challenges of tomorrow, for the challenges that the markets are giving them. So we have quite a number of services. We try to match different companies, but also companies and research actors to try and get new collaborative projects. We also work on the digitalization. So we have a digital transformation department. We work on business development. So we try to attract new companies to Luxembourg from abroad, but also develop, we have here startups. So we try to develop and to support the startup ecosystem of Luxembourg. You may probably have heard about Fit for Start, which is one of the flagship initiatives we had. And then also our team, my department, where I'm working is the R&D and innovation support. We work on funding, basically. We support companies to access a number of funding tools from Ministry of the Economy, but also from the European Commission. This is my job. We work on European funding. I had a team of, at the moment, 7 people working on Horizon Europe, which is the main RDI program from the European Commission. 95.5 billion euros of total financial allocation for the next, we have already gone through 2 years, but we will have 5 more, so until 2027. So we work on this program to try to help companies and also public research in accessing these programs, in getting funded for their innovation projects. We start from identifying what's the company's idea, what's the researcher's idea. We match with the best calls, and then we support the entire application process. We accompany to find new partners for your projects. We find the best policies that you have to respond to better tailor your project to these calls. We also help with the administrative part, with the budgeting of the projects. We review the proposals also, and then if the project is successful, which is of course something that we always hope, we also help with the negotiation of the grant with the Commission and with the reporting, IP management, all these things. We support the full life cycle of the project. It's kind of an intense job, but we love to do it because, of course, many of us, we are former scientists in the team, so we really see what we have done in the past, and we see how we can help companies and researchers in getting more successful in these tools.
Of course. And this is also an interesting part, I think, because you said we love to do it, because I'm more on the side, I'm even sitting, the listeners can't see it, but I'm sitting on the same side as Alberto, because if I think about applications and if I think about EU programs, it's a lot of paperwork. So
yes, Commission tries to simplify quite a lot, all the procedure. Of course, you have gone through that.
Yes,
Alberto,
we're going through it right now.
Yeah, and we are So they have simplified, but of course there's paperwork. There's the proposal to write, where you have to be convincing on what you're doing in terms of science, in terms of innovation, in terms of the economic impact, but also the policy-related impact. And also there's the very boring part about how you're going to manage this project. So you have to write this, but then also prepare the administrative forms and prepare the budget. And is this cost eligible? Is this cost instead? Can I buy some equipment? Can I make travels to the US? It's all this kind of question that we get. From time to time, we get very complicated questions also about costing new stuff, etc. So, I've been a researcher myself. And I remember that when I was thinking about those things, about my research, it was very complicated to me to think about writing a project and all the administrative part. So I would have loved to have someone help me. And that's why we like to do that, because we know that we can have an impact in that sense.
Okay, but we're also talking about innovation, which is difficult to put on paper, right? Because first of all, you need to figure out where you're going, and then also how do you describe it? How do you find the pertinence and also fit it in all the different tables? So if someone asks you about NIUM and you have to pitch and give 5 sentences, what do you say first?
So NIUM is a company that focuses on developing technologies that will allow to better understand how food impacts metabolism. And that those technologies are both on data analysis side, more on bioinformatics, computational models, but also now on better instruments for the laboratory to test these different products. And right now we have a big focus on gut health, but of course our vision is to develop the most comprehensive model of digestion.
And what is interesting about you, there's a lot of firsts today. 2 guests, but also actually first company CEO, because normally I have researchers and I kind of see in their eyes sometimes it's like, I want to have my own business. But of course they are still there at those institutions and you've just gone for it, right? So what made you do it?
It was not a very well planned decision, I would say, to be honest. It was during my doctoral work at the University of Luxembourg. One of the things that always made me wonder a bit in research is that a lot of this work that we produce and a lot of high quality work that is producing across universities in Europe, it just is lying on the desk, right? So you publish your results and there's not much follow-up sometimes. That for many reasons, right? Sometimes it's just lack of funding or the project, there's not much follow-up to go on. And I always thought that I wanted to do something that is a bit more practical in that extent, right? You need both sides, obviously, but I guess my profile was more fit towards something a little bit more applied. And at the time, I started applying for some funding with the National Funding Agency here in Luxembourg to see if there was an interest on some of the ideas that I had back then. And that's how it started. We started first as a research project that slowly evolved to a spin-off.
We also have to mention something that is very particular for Luxembourg, the 5 years. Yeah. Should I say the dreaded 5 years? Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm behind the scenes. I am discussing it a lot. So sorry, you're the first person I'm asking it to on air, but we do have to say that. So for those who don't know, what happens after 5 years at the university here or a research institute?
Yeah, well, so I would say that wasn't really the decision factor for me, even though we had to find a way to manage to continue running the research project while I was going over those 5 years. I would rather look at it, or at least I look at it from the lens of maybe we should be incentivizing more researchers to do what I did or to follow maybe alternative career paths and promoting more entrepreneurship inside the university as well, due to the fact that precisely that. And not only the 5 years, research careers are very limited. If you look at the number of PhDs and the number of available professorships, the ratio there, you're going to need to find alternative career paths for all these PhDs if you want to keep the talent in Luxembourg. So yeah, it is a problem, the 5-year rule, for sure.
We just need to mention it just means that after 5 years, you need to leave where you are. Yeah, because that's what I meant as well. Or maybe some people don't know about it, so I just wanted to say that.
Well, you have to leave the institution you're in, right?
And so not Luxembourg, but the institution you're in. Yeah.
So in Luxembourg, that is indeed limited because you have, let's say, a reduced number of research institutions. So your options are limited because of that, But it's getting better even there.
We can go back to Stefano, and then there is Luxinnovation and EU Horizon. You apply, you get a spin-off startup, and you just aim for the stars.
Yes, at the end, the commissioners put together a number of instruments to try to support research institutions, but also companies at all their different levels of their maturity. So, for instance, there's this program which is supporting deep tech innovation in the European companies, in particular in deep tech scale-up companies. It's called the European Innovation Council.
I have to stop you here. I understand startup, I understand spin-off, but scale-up, what is it actually?
You are a startup. You have a brilliant idea. You incorporate the company. You start working on developing your solution. At a certain point, you can start addressing the market. You can start with a very limited market, but at a certain point, you can start increasing the number of clients. You can start increasing the collaborations. You can start making bigger things. That I would call it the scale-up moment. So it's not where you have traditionally the idea of a startup in a garage, right? It's probably when you start exiting the garage, you start having a bit more a corporate aspect in your daily life.
So NIUM is not a startup. You're not in a garage.
We're not in a garage, but we're also not a scale-up. So,
okay.
So in order to support this scaling up of the company, Commission has put together this European Innovation Council. The idea is that you start from when you have an idea, and you can have an idea the same way that they had it. They had it in a university laboratory. They were there working on the research project, and they had this idea. So the first part of the European Innovation Council is supporting the idea. We have this concept of technology readiness level. It's a scale from 1, wow, I had an idea, to 9, I am on the market and deploying on the market. So they support from here 1, from the very beginning of the scale, up to market deployment. They have different instruments in this process. You have small-scale collaborative projects at the beginning. Then you have proof of concept validation projects in the mid part. And then they go for blended finance tools at the end. It's where you apply for both a grant which is funded up 2.5 million euros and 70%, but you can also get access to equity. You have the commission which is investing equity in the company, matching private investments in order to support the company scale up, because of course the grant is for more innovative elements. But of course, if you are scaling up the company, if you are going to market, you need to do something which is more market kind of activities, trade fairs, increasing the production facilities, etc. So it's also that kind of activities that you can cover. And that's a specific part of Horizon Europe that has been introduced specifically in Horizon Europe. It was piloted in the previous framework program, which was Horizon 2020, and now it's fully running. And we have had, for instance, this year, the first 2 successful companies in Luxembourg, but we have very good pipeline of companies coming from Fit for Start, companies that we have already supported in Luxinnovation going into this very ambitious program, because I have to say it's very ambitious, very rewarding, but again, very ambitious, I would say.
So that's for you. We're talking very ambitious here.
Yeah, we got the Seal of Excellence, so we didn't get it yet. But we're going to try again this resubmission now in March. Yeah.
Okay, so it's good you're here, You can talk afterwards about that. You can tell him what he needs to change in the application.
Yes.
Right. And all that.
We're doing that with Luxinnovation.
Yeah.
Yes, they are big out there.
We went into this scale-up story, and I noticed it's very good, Stefan. You remember where you started, so you kind of circled back to what you were talking about in the beginning. But as you already mentioned a little bit, the Luxembourg ecosystem and all that, I think this is the moment that I would like you. Today we have 2 questions. So first of all, Stefano, if you can ask the question that you prepared for our listeners, and then not exactly related, but still a question, I will ask you, Alberto, to ask yours as well, which is of course related to NIUM, but not to the EU Horizon program. And listeners, remember, as usual, the answers are only at the end of the podcast, so you have to listen until the end. So, Stefano, can you ask your question?
What's the full financial return that we have had in the first 2 years of Horizon Europe, so 2021 and 2022?
Okay, so that's the first question. So remember about that one. We will remind you the question at the end and give you the answer. And the other question, we will also move on to the subject in a second, is from Alberto.
So if it was possible to remove all single microbes from your body and put them on a scale, how much would they weigh?
So 2 different ones. Remember, here we have money and here we have microbes. And here, in both cases, we have numbers as well. So a bit different, because I know the answer. So the scale is a little bit different, but still very impressive. So for sure, we're going to have a look at that. But now moving on to you, Alberto, because you mentioned the microbes. So why are you talking about microbes? NIUM and microbes, that's the important part?
Yeah, it's probably our biggest focus at the moment. So we work mainly with food companies developing products that are providing a benefit to your health and mainly focusing on gut health. And in particular, both in the research world and also in the industry, we see more and more a lot of interest on the gut microbiome, so the community of microbes that live in our guts and that contribute to our health in many different ways. And so to better understand how food interacts with the microbiome is key not only for product development, but also later on looking at clinical applications and how we can use nutrition as a tool to improve outcomes.
So stepping into a minefield, if I may. I mean, food companies and nutrition and all that, that's not an easy path to choose after, your cushy job at LCSB.
Well, I never considered research work very easy. I don't think research careers are that easy. I think I would even argue that PhD students, I think, are very well prepared to become entrepreneurs. Maybe they need to learn some skills like I did, but I think the grit is there. I think the work with food companies, and I know that a lot of people might look at these big corporations as sometimes the part of the problem, and it's true. But if we really want to implement change, then you need to change the system. And if we provide tools and a path to develop healthier products in a much more efficient way, then these companies will go after it because this is business after all. So if you're managed to combine good health outcomes with good business, that's the ideal solution in my point of view, at least.
Okay, sounds very convincing for sure. But then I have a problem here because normally when I talk to researchers here, they can just give me everything, all the secrets of the research, because that's all official. Here we're talking about the company. So I'm sure there is that moment of what is official and what is not, what you're keeping behind the scenes. So first of all, actually, how does it work when you decide you have an idea? We know in research, you can't just say it was only me. I mean, it's a work of many people. How do you turn it into your own startup or spin-off? Can you just go and take it? Do we talk about patents? Do you still talk to your colleagues at LCSB? What's the dynamics?
So typically how it works, and of course there are many ways of creating a company. In the case of a spin-off or a spin-out or whatever we want to call it.
Spin-out as well, you can call it.
Even I get confused with how interchangeable those terms are.
You just know you have to spin, but whichever.
That's a given. You need to spin from somewhere, either out or off. So I just call it a spin-off. You have generated some sort of IP during your research work or during a specific project that is associated with the university. This IP will belong to the institution from where you did the work. And then there is a process of technology transfer where a company, startup, will receive the rights to commercialize that IP. And then, of course, there's negotiation in many different shapes and forms in how that happens. In Luxembourg, typically, you will get a license and you will be paying some sort of royalties. So a fraction of the money you earn from commercializing that IP back to the university.
And that's how it's working for you right now?
Yeah, for us, that's how it's working. So we're going through our second round of negotiations as well, because we're always exploring new solutions and also with the goal as well to generate our own IP, but it's something that we are relatively comfortable doing. Yeah.
Okay, and now the practical side. So I read something about a gut on a chip that you're using and all that. So what's the idea? I get a chip and it tells me whether my gut is okay or not? Or
well, that's actually something new that we're implementing now, and we're trying even to open our own lab to start performing these tests. So this is another piece of intellectual property that was generated here at the LCSB at the University of Luxembourg. And essentially what it is, it's a miniaturized model to perform actual laboratory experiments. And the idea is that this device replicates the gastrointestinal tract. And so essentially what we're trying to replicate in the lab in most accurate way possible is the fermentation by gut microbiome of nutrition products. And before we started purely from a data analysis point of view, so we were using bioinformatics pipelines to analyze data from these.
Programming in Python, maybe, or not?
As well, yes. Well, we use mostly Julia, which is a very nice language.
Not R.
And R as well, yes, okay. yes. So So we do believe that there's a lot of potential in this technology because we see the applications that it has on the market. So being on the market is also key here to really look at different applications of these technologies that are generated. Now there's back to the model. So the idea there again is a miniaturized version of the gut where you culture a microbiome sample. So you add in a stool sample and you apply or add on to that sample and to the model, let's say a new ingredient that you want to test. And so you do that culture, which tries to replicate what happens in our guts. And at the end, we do a bunch of measurings and we try to give information to our clients about what is the outcome of that fermentation. Do we measure compounds that are associated with a good impact on health? What is the best combination? Can we look at personalized responses as well? So there's a lot of applications that we will be pursuing. But the challenge is how we turn this research product, let's say, into a commercial one. And that requires a lot of work, a lot of investment. And that's the challenge for the startup. That's where it changes. It's not only about research, even though we continue to do research. It's also about what transformations do we need to make on the IP, but on how can we turn this into a platform that we can scale this type of service.
And can Luxinnovation answer these questions or not really?
Partially, yes. Partially, I would say, because of course there's all the scientific part. It's something that the biologist. I started as doing biotech, so I'm very curious. And
I noticed you kind of sat down back and I started
and
listening like this. Oh,
biotechnology in me is very interested and would love to work on these things. But of course, yes, what we can try and help in this process is, I mentioned just one part of Horizon Europe, which is the European Innovation Council, which I think is also one of the best fitting to this kind of innovation. But of course, there's a number of other programs that can really support these initiatives. Well, you have collaborative projects in the area of health, for instance, that they can really address these topics. So you can put NIUM, and it's been recently announced a successful project that they've been involved in together with the Luxembourg Institute of Health and the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. So LIST and LIH.
LIST and LIH,
yes. Yeah. So where they can develop new IP, new technology, they can test on a larger scale these solutions. And here's where we can guide companies, because we can really try and support companies in finding these networks who are the best fitted guys to win this project, so we can put our players in contact with these guys, try to develop better proposals. But then also, he mentioned IP, and you mentioned it as well. IP, it's a very critical element. And when you access collaborative Horizon Europe project, you sign an agreement with the European Commission, where the European Commission is transferring you the grant to run the project. But inside the consortium, you have to sign another agreement, which is called consortium agreement. It's very similar to a joint venture agreement. Basically, in this agreement, you say how you're going to manage the project, but how you're going to deal with IP. It's how you're going to treat the background IP that you are bringing to the project, but how also you're going to exploit the foreground, what you're going to develop. And there, of course, there's normally the approach is to go for a shared ownership between the people who have been working on a very specific innovation. But you have different opportunities. We have discussed about licensing earlier. You can have many different solutions. And therefore, here's also where we can help, because we can really sit together with a company and say, okay, but for you, maybe it's better if you can try to have it in this way, try to propose to the consortium and help in this kind of negotiations.
Oh, very tricky as well. We're formalizing innovation, as I said. I'm currently reading a book by Walter Isaacson, Innovators, and so the story of computers and everything. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, it was in the past. The main discussion, of course, is who registered the patent first, right?
Yeah.
But then again, it's also this interesting bit when we talk about innovation that I really find relevant is that sometimes it's just the atmosphere, the situation, the technological development that makes it possible for three different places to develop the same idea, mm-hmm. right? Of course, basing on the knowledge that is already there.
Yep.
Then who do you actually say was the first in this situation, right? And how do you prove it? It's really difficult, especially when we're talking about the funding then and the development and having a business out of it.
Yeah, it's the IP especially when you're negotiating IP, it's almost like sets the foundation, right? If things are not clear and the IP situation is not clear, it can jeopardize any venture down the line. So yeah, it's very tricky. It's sometimes a bit murky to know what exactly is the invention, what is the innovative step, and so on. But those are steps that are very necessary because it helps as well set the stage for what's happening next in the venture, what's the potential for further developments, and so on. Yeah.
We said something about LIH, about LIST, about the corporations, European Commission, Luxinnovation and all that. And now I'm trying to kind of get my head around your idea a little bit as well. And I also read that there is diabetes involved and cancer research. Is that one of the ideas, one of the directions you want to go to? Are you already researching that side of looking at the gut and those two important illnesses?
I would say there are no diseases that are completely disassociated from the gut almost. There's always some association to some level, right? But there are indeed more and more research coming out that shows the importance of the gut for many clinical outcomes. And in particular, cancer is for me, of high interest because it has been shown that there is very close relationship between immune responses and the status of the microbiome. And we have been seeing research, for example, on immune therapies for cancer patients, where depending on the presence of certain bacteria, a patient will respond better to one given therapy. And that opens avenues not only to better, let's say, diagnostics or treatment decisions, but also a potential, okay, if there's something missing from that microbiome, can we supplement it? Can we use nutrition intervention to kind of help the efficacy of the treatment, not replacing the use of medication or treatments, but use it as a support tool to increase the chances of success. So that's something that we are already looking into. And there's also, even locally in Luxembourg, some work in the research centers done around that topic. And it's also, we see it from the industry on, all these probiotic nutrition supplements, clinical nutrition products. The microbiome in the gut is a hot topic right now.
It definitely is. We could say the gut is the new black or whatever, paraphrasing, right? We talk a lot about the brain, but I have a feeling that nowadays, I don't know if it's just my bubble and my, feed or something, but I get more and more information about the gut and how important it is, the axis or whatever else. But it's also difficult to sell it somehow. I think that, discussing gut as such, people already have the image of it.
Sometimes jokingly to kind of break the ice, I mentioned that we are a poop tech company. So it's trying to just, that it is what it is. It's what we work on. It's fine. It's important. So
maybe you should also work on how the gut is represented because, if you think about the heart, for example, the pop culture way it looks, it's very nice, right? Yeah. But actually maybe if you try very hard, when you really look at the way heart looks like, it's not that cool anymore.
Yes.
So maybe there is a bit of graphic design.
I've seen a lot of cute designs for bacteria. So the bacteria, I think we're changing a bit the perception, but indeed the gut might be a bit more tricky to...
Cute designs for bacteria,
yes,
really?
Yes, a lot of them.
You confirm as well, Stefano?
I can confirm, yeah.
So what is it like? They're smiling? Yeah. I guess you give them eyes, right? And all that personality.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they're helpful, right? So we need them. So I think there is something there for sure. With the gut, we would have to think, but yeah, it's almost like a tunnel, right? How do you make it cute?
The light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, the light at the end of the tunnel, yes.
Most probably. But it just reminded me, actually, my children have this book. I think it's by some Israeli authors. Don't Lick This Book. That's the title. And it's exactly about microbes. And they are super cute. So basically, the whole story is that you touch the book and then you just, travel with the microbes. And they took the real pictures, of course, like zoomed in of some of the ones that they're discussing there. And then they made them these cartoonish characters. And it's great. It's a lot of fun. On top of it, they actually put also the real pictures at the end, so you can check more or less, the colors, of course, without eyes, but the colors and the shapes and textures, probably a bit easier to make something appealing out of it.
Yeah.
I guess, at least. Okay, we went somewhere very far away. I can see already cute bacteria, but we're coming back to the discussion. So is there something else we could mention about Luxinnovation and its role in this support? So we talked about NIUM and we talked about scale-ups and startups and Horizon program, but you said that it's just one of the paths. There are many more.
Yes, there's a lot about collaboration, industrial collaboration, value chains collaboration. Actually, Horizon Europe is divided in 3 main pillars. Then you have some horizontal elements that are of minor interest for Luxembourg and for our ecosystem, I would say. But you have 3 pillars in Horizon Europe. Spoke about the third one, which is the European Innovation Council, the Innovative Europe, it's called. Then there's one about excellence science. There you have projects that are supporting the researchers at different stages of their career, for instance, PhDs, postdocs, to start their international career by supporting also international mobility. Actually, it's an eligibility criteria. People have to move from one European country to the other one so that they can get trained with new technologies, but also with new cultures. And this is something that is very important in Europe to me. What we have available in terms of the cultural richness that we have in Europe. Then you have the European Research Council there, which is to support young researchers in becoming more independent principal investigators, becoming the very high-skilled PIs in their research laboratories, and they can do it in a initial grants, which is up 1.5 million euros, which is called the starting grant. Then you go up to the consolidator and then to the advanced. And always hear about Nobel Prizes, and it's often you have Nobel Prizes, European Nobel Prizes have been supported by the European Research Council. So it's really supporting the best scientists that we have in Europe. We have another program which is called Research Infrastructure, which is giving the researchers the possibility to access research infrastructure that are the best in Europe, and they support, again, mobility of researchers to go and use these facilities. We have then the collaborative part, which is probably the one that is the thematic. There you cover the 6 global challenges, they are called. It's health, culture and creativity, civil security, digital industry and space, climate, energy and mobility, food, bioeconomy and circular economy. These are the 6 areas that are covered. There is where we work.
Alberto, you're also impressed? Because I would not be able to remember all this. Sorry, go on, Stefano.
Yeah, it takes 15 years of working into this things. Here you have collaborative projects. So it's really about working on value chains, collaborating with your partners. I mentioned the project before about LIH, LIST and NIUM. It's really different actors tackling a common problem with different expertise from different angles, right? You have a research institute which is working on the health sector, then you have technology provider from the list, you have a young startup which is coming with a very innovative solution, but then you have partners abroad. And if I remember, in that case, there are 9 other countries involved in the Healthy Weight project.
I don't remember the number of countries because it's 24 partners.
Yes, 24 partners. And if I remember correct, it's nine countries involved. So, it's a large-scale collaboration. So you have everyone is coming with their solution, with their expertise to tackle together a common problem. And there, what we can do is telling you if it's the right idea, telling you who is the partner that maybe you are missing, and that, we have been working in the past with them, and then, the budget, but let's do some tweaks here and there so the evaluators are happier, because the competition is tough. And I have to say, you have to score really top grades in order to get the project. So every single thing counts. And that's what we try to do. That's one of the successes, but which we're really proud of, because, of course, at the end, it's close to 3 million euros to Luxembourg just in that single project. And that's a small hint for the question that we had before.
Okay, I was just thinking that we're kind of going towards that question, but not revealing it yet, because we still have a few minutes, and I still wanted to go back to Alberto. Now you defined a few of the things I was wondering about, but I don't think we talked genetics and genome. So what is this story about microbial genome?
Well, even the term, the gut microbiome, so the gut microbiome, or the origins of the term, is the aggregate of all the genomes of these microorganisms that are in your gut. It became kind of just a reference as well for the community itself. And so one of the ways of looking at, for example, the functionality of these microbes in the gut is when you take a sample, is you measure which genes are there and what are these genes or what is the activity of these genes. So we look in particular with our bioinformatic pipelines, we look especially at pathway analysis to try to predict, given this structure or this amount of genes that is there, so not only which ones, but in the amount, what is the behavior of that community? Can we predict, can we simulate how that community is behaving? So yeah, that it refers to basically this aggregate of genes or microbial genes in your body.
And does it also mean that we can just culture them ourselves because we know the whole genome of all the microbes in our gut?
We don't know everything, and there's still a lot that we don't know, because sometimes you even know, you can identify the gene, but you don't know what it does. So there's a lot of stuff that is still being discovered. About the cultures, that's also what we're trying to do with our gut on a chip. We're trying to take out samples and culture them in the lab in a way that, mimics same environment in the gut, because that's one of the big challenges. A lot of these bacteria live in, let's say, what we call an anoxic environment. So there's no oxygen, or there's very little oxygen in the gut. And when you take them out, that they will not be able to survive, right? So if you want to have a model that, is replicating as best as you can the conditions within the gut, you have to take into account that. What is the pH level? What is the oxygen level? All those things. So it's a very, technically, it's a very difficult challenge. But yeah, there's so much to learn still. But already with what we know, can we already provide useful information? And it just shows that there's so much potential in this field and so much to find out, that also makes the venture even more interesting from that perspective.
So yet another field where you just work weekends and holidays.
Yeah, I think it's part of it, especially when you're starting things out. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is to some extent. I don't like to be the demotivating person, but when I hear someone that wants to do a startup doing a 40-hour week, it might work for them. In their case, it might work. Unfortunately for me, it really doesn't. I don't know if I'm not working efficiently enough, but it's just the reality of things. There's so many things to do, and no one is going to do it for you. So you just have to sacrifice a bit for that, for sure. Yeah, but I like what I do. I have a lot of fun. I'm learning more than in these past 4 years. I learned more probably than in 15 years in school. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have. Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3 people who love what they do. Perfect, perfect situation. But I think that the listeners will not love what I'm going to say right now, which is we're kind of drawing to an end, which means we have to go back to the questions that you might like, actually, and then the answers. But the end, I hope you are kind of like wanted to listen to more. But for sure, definitely, you can always contact our guests and talk about it, or just get in touch with me and I'll tell you how to contact them. So let's reverse it a little bit. So we start with Alberto. What was the question and what's the answer?
So the question was that if it was possible to remove every single microbe from your body and put them on a scale, how much it weighed. And of course, this is an average because, I'm also, some people are taller, smaller, so it will always play a role. But on average, you would have 3 pounds of microbes in your body. That's around 1.4 kilos on average. And that you would lose if you would lose all your microbes. You wouldn't be able to digest food as well, but you would be skinnier.
So you basically said, don't do it at home.
No, don't try this at home.
Okay, well, that's a lot, really. It's yet another situation where we're just saying, this is just these small things in there, whatever, right? Yeah. But when you start thinking about 1.5 kilograms, that kind of puts you into perspective why it's so important as well.
And most of it is in the gut. And of course, it's also is higher and lower depending on where you are in terms of digestion. So,
and how do you weigh a microbe, actually?
Yeah, that's the thing. This is our estimates based on, you know the dry weight of a lot of these microbes. So there's ways to estimate that.
Cool. So now we have one estimation, and now it's not an estimation. There's a question and there's clear answer, I hope.
Yes, the question was, what is the financial return for Luxembourg the first 2 years of Horizon Europe, which is the framework program for research innovation lasting from 2021 to 2027. It's close to 75 million euros. Just to give you
context.
A context, because without context, it doesn't mean much. 2 framework programs ago, so 2007, 2014, the total return was 60 million for the 7 years. Horizon 2020, which ended in 2020, of course, the name says it, we have 200 million euros in 7 years. So we are increasing constantly the rates of return from these programs. It's thanks to the increased number of applications that we have, thanks to also a success rate in Luxembourg that is higher than the European average. We are close to 20% success rate in Horizon Europe project. European average, it's around 16.5. Normally we are 3% better than the average. I love to say that it's also partially thanks to our job.
For sure. We can say that at least this is not something we can really confirm, so let's stay on the positive side, right? But I'm sure that you're taking, some of the well-deserved, congratulations on that. And I also actually talked to a friend of mine who's also doing some, innovation work, European Union level, and she was telling me something about definitely big difference when it comes to innovation in Luxembourg, that at certain moment on the European Union scale, we were pretty behind, that we needed a lot of support.
Yes.
And now we are among the countries that innovate. Yes,
we are a strong innovator if we consider this scoreboard that the Commission is publishing every year. But if I think about European funding programs, we were considered widening countries in the past, countries that were receiving specific help to increase their research performance. Now we are not. We are one of the countries constantly with higher success rates. We are the country that has increased the most its participation to the programs. Of course, the numbers, sometimes it's difficult to find statistics when you think about Luxembourg. We are so small that sometimes the statistical relevance of the numbers is not always clear. But all the indicators that we have is that we are one of the top performing countries at the moment, and it's thanks to the effort from the government, thanks to the brilliant researchers that we have in the university, in the LIs, in the startups that we have in Luxembourg. We have a startup ecosystem that is growing and growing and growing. It's really, I have a bright outlook for Luxembourg. What I really like to see, and I would like to close that because also time is getting short, is that what I like to see is that when I think about collaborative projects, when I started here in Luxinnovation, it was 5.5 years ago, we had participation in European programs, but it was mostly from individual companies, individual researchers. Now you clearly see companies going together, university or the LIs working with the startups, working with other companies. So you really see that there's a common effort in doing innovation, and this is something that we see statistically from the data that we get from the Commission, and it's nice to see. Of course, and that's also something that Research Luxembourg is working on, that kind of collaboration between all the partners, the important partners here in Luxembourg, and on that we can just finish and say, let's go innovate. In the evening, maybe not tomorrow. I don't know. Depends when you're listening to the podcast. Maybe it's the morning and you're just getting your boost and now you're going to come up with some innovative idea. Then contact Stefano. He will definitely help you. Or maybe you want to collaborate with Alberto. You just got something to improve, or you're, I don't know, some food company that wants to cooperate. So definitely contact them as well. But for now, thank you very much for coming today and sharing your experiences and your stories with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And this is it for today. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow us, to check what we are writing on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, sometimes not so often actually, and Instagram. And if you have any questions, any comments, suggestions for guests, we are always open to listen to you, of course, and we'll definitely reply. This was SciLux, and my name is Hanna Siemaszko.